Number 2 wide receiver room in the country? Boy, this could be fun.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. Happy Monday. We got so much to talk about. Auburn baseball, absolutely killing it. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. Pro Football Focus puts out their top 5 wide receiver rooms in the country. Auburn comes in at number 2 in the nation and number 1 in the SEC. What does that mean? And we're going to compare it to some of the other really good wide receiver rooms that Auburn's had just for a frame of reference. And I'm sure there's going to be some great discussion around that. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to mybookie.ag. Use coupon code BARN, B-A-R-N, for a 50% deposit bonus. Give them $100. They're going to give you 50 back free to play with. Hit that sports book. Get in on some college baseball action as Auburn's headed to host a super regional. You still got all kind of other athletic events to bet on as well. So easy deposits, easy withdrawals. It's mybookie.ag. Pro Football Focus puts out their top 5. Actually, they did their top 10 in the nation as far as returning wide receiver rooms. And Auburn checks in at number 2, right behind Ohio State, which is understandable. Number 1 in the SEC, the top 5 goes Ohio State, Auburn, Clemson, Ole Miss, and Alabama. So 3 SEC schools in the top 5, and Auburn checks in at number 2. Auburn was the only, I believe, the only one that had 2 of the top 10 returning wide receivers on that list. You had Eric Singleton somewhere close to the top 10, number 2 or number 3. Then you had Cam Coleman back there at like number 6 or number 7, something like that. So as a room, it's fun to get, I guess, recognition like this. But here's the thing. It's easy to buy into the hype for these publications. It's easy to buy into the hype coming off of a really good season. It's really easy for, Pro Football Focus to say, okay, Ohio State, obviously, doing what they did last year, returning their wide receivers easily, you got to put them number 1. Ole Miss, they throw it around a ton. They score a bunch of points. They get a bunch of receiving yards. They got some guys coming back. They've added a couple of guys in the portal. They got to be up there. Alabama, you had Ryan Williams last year. A couple other guys that put up good numbers. They're coming back. They won 9 games. They're going to be hoping to make a run. It's easy to put them up there. Auburn's a tricky one. I mean, Cam Coleman he really had a strong back half of the season, battling a couple of different injuries throughout the year. Eric Singleton's a new guy that's not even played in the SEC yet. Malcolm Simmons has done some good things. But, Auburn only won 5 games last year. It's a little bit more of a step out, I feel like, to jump them all the way up to number 2 based off of, the rankings of those receivers. But that makes you feel like, hey, you overcame a lot of the ones that, yeah, they deserved it, but there's still a little bit of hype that's built into there as well. Auburn had none of that. And you get to throw them up there at number 2. What that does bring, though, is even higher expectations. Like, those things are great, but it puts, I know that Hugh talks about there's no pressure and he doesn't feel pressure and things like that. It's really going to be impossible not to feel pressure when you're getting all of the recognition that you're getting. It's going to be really tough not to have to produce results. I mean, when you got the number 2 returning wide receiver room in the country. If you can't move the ball, boy, there's going to be some fingers start being pointed. There's going to be some big questions asked. You got to make it happen. You got to make it happen. And the good news is I really do think this wide receiver room is going to be incredible. Just the depth as a whole. And then you got your top end playmakers as well. So I think even with an injury or so, you still got guys that can step up, and you got guys that nobody's really talking about, like Horatio Fields, who's done it at a high level against really good competition for a while. You got Perry Thompson, who's an athletic freak, who's just kind of waiting to break out. And those are those are number 4, 5, and 6 that we're talking about. It's a really fun room, man. It's a really, really fun room, and it could do a lot. It could be a lot of fun to watch. I love having these discussions, and I know we're gonna aggravate people, especially people that have a little bit older crowd that love some of the those 80s teams and 90s teams and even back into the 70s. But when you're talking about wide receiver rooms as a whole and what's the best wide receiver room, there have been some really fun duos. And I know as the game changes, more wide receivers get involved. So maybe it's not a completely fair question or a completely fair discussion because, again, for a while, the most wide receivers you'd have on the field are 2. But as things evolve and things change, more guys get involved. I think you got to go back to that 2004 team, 2004, 2005 room to really have a good comparison of a room as a whole. Now, if you want to go just look at Eric Singleton and Cam Coleman, like there's a lot of good Auburn receiving duos that we could talk about. I think one of the most underrated duos, mostly because he just kept getting hurt, but could have been unbelievable with Sammy Coates and Duke Williams. They were crazy, but we're not talking about just duos. We're talking about there's a ton of those that you could go through. We could go through duos all day long. But as far as rooms as a whole, I think the one you got to go back to that's the closest in comparison is that 2004 team. 2004 and 2005, because they got to carry on. And honestly, those guys won some games in 2005 on their own, probably that we had no business winning. I think about the Georgia game in particular. Everybody remembers that big 4th down conversion with Devin Aromashadu going over the middle. I think it was like 4th and 15 or something like that. People forget that class. Ben Obamanu was a 5-star. He was a 5-star from Selma, and he was the number 32 overall player in the country. And then Devin was another top 100 wide receiver. Top 100 overall player, not top 100 wide receiver. He was a top 100 player. So you had 2 really good guys. Courtney Taylor was not even really that highly ranked. He was ranked as an athlete. He played quarterback in high school, and he actually redshirted that first year because I think he was only a sophomore. He was only a redshirt sophomore when these guys were juniors on that 2004 team. Cam Coleman's obviously a 5-star. He was the number 6 overall player, so you got a little bit of a jump there as far as high school rankings go. Eric Singleton was not very highly rated at all. He sort of earned he's earned it on the field. But people forget, man, that was a pretty highly rated room. That was a pretty highly rated class. Like anytime we get a 5-star wide receiver, everybody's fired up. And you got a 5-star wide receiver and a top 100 wide receiver. So very similar to this class 2 years ago. But they were good. They were good as a whole. And then also you had, his name's Anthony Mix. Anthony Mix, who became a really good. He kind of came in as a tight. He kind of came in as like a hybrid tight end guy and ended up becoming a pretty good. He ended up becoming a really good hybrid hybrid use guy that made some big plays. That was a really good room as a whole. When you talk about more than just, a duo, that was a really good room. And they carried us a lot of times. They bailed us out a lot of times in 2004, made some big plays. That to me is the closest room that I can think of. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's the closest room that you can think of to, obviously they got to do it on, obviously this team has to do it on the field, but when you're talking about potential and you're talking about hype and you're talking about expectations, I think you got to go all the way back to the 2004 room as a whole to come up with a decent comparison. I think this team, even still, as good as that room was, Ben went late? He went late in the draft. Devin went late in the draft. Courtney Taylor went late in the draft. Anthony Mix, I'm not sure if he got drafted. If he did, I think he went late too. I know he went to the Giants for a while. You have Eric Singleton Jr. projected as a first-round pick. You have Cam Coleman. Obviously, he can't come out this year, but he's going to be close. I mean, if he's a top 10 wide receiver right now, like that's on pace to be a NFL first-round pick. So even as good as that room was in 2004, they still didn't have the draft potential that this class has, that this wide receiver room has. So again, as good as these accolades are preseason, and as good as the love they're getting from around the country without necessarily the hype from last season to build off of, as good as all that is, you got to produce. You got to do it on the field. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing plays out, how you feed all these mouths, because, boy, you got some talent back there. We're going to talk about baseball in just a second, but before we do that, let's give a quick shout-out to Rhoback.com. Use coupon code BUTTON20 to take 20% off your order. I got my Rhoback licensed Auburn hoodie, still rocking it in June. Morning times for now are still going to be hoodie times for me. But that'll go away soon because it's going to get blistering in a very short period of time. But, hey, they got hoodies, they got polos, they got swim trunks, they got everything ready for you for the summer. So check them out, show them some love. It's mybookie.ag. We'll be back right after this. Let's talk Auburn baseball. I'm not going to talk too much about Auburn baseball because I don't want to – I can't hold a candle to the coverage this weekend that you got from Lindsey Crosby and Brad Law. Like, unbelievable. We got Lindsey doing like WWE promos from the outfield. I mean, the live shows after, if you missed any of those, you need to go back and check those out. Live reaction shows, just unbelievable content. But I do have a couple of things I want to talk about. Obviously, the bats were incredible this weekend. You scored what? 28 runs, I think. 17 and 11. That's 28, yeah. 28 runs in 3 games. You absolutely plastered NC State. You jumped on them pretty quickly and put them away. You did what you handled your business. If you're the number 4 team in the country, you're the number 4 seed, you did what you're supposed to do. And you shut a bunch of people up, and there's one guy on Twitter that's just not happy that Auburn advanced, and Auburn fans are giving it to him. I can't even think of his name at the top, right off the top of my head. I think he was an Oklahoma State guy who I think they were eliminated. But yeah, you handle business. And then I have not verified this. I'm going off of Lindsey Crosby. You get a chance to host your very first Super Regional, which is kind of crazy to me that's never happened before. And you get to face a Sun Belt team, I believe, Coastal Carolina. They're a pretty good ball club, number 13 overall seed. You got the pathway. It could not be a better pathway. It's very similar to how things played out for Auburn to me last year in the NCAA tournament. I really liked the draw. I liked the way the cards fell. I felt like Auburn had a really good pathway all the way up and all the way to the Final Four. And Auburn's got a really good pathway again to get to Omaha if you just handle business this weekend. I assume it's going to be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. Sunday if needed, hopefully not. I think some of the field's not completely set because there's still some games that are going to have to be played. If Auburn would have lost last night, they would have had to play again today. So we'll have to – the dates and times are still TBD, but you do get to face looks like Coastal Carolina in the Super Regional, which is just fantastic. Where I want to go from here is I want to talk about Butch for a second, because last year there were so many people. I'm so tired of hearing this. There's Auburn fans that just don't. There's Auburn fans that only watch football, and they try. And I've talked about this before. And they watch other sports the way they watch football, and they're not really those type of those sport fans. So they tune in when you watch baseball when everything else is over. You're not really following the team. You're not really invested. You're not really bought in. And last year was bad. Like, that was a bad year last year. But you see all these people, oh, you got to get rid of Butch. You got to make a change. You got to fire the pitching coach. You got to fire the hitting coach. You got to fire everybody. And what does this staff do? And what do the people that are true baseball fans and baseball supporters do? You know what they do? They lock in. They get this stadium thing done that's incredible. The stadium's incredible. They go out and get the positions that they need in the portal. They go out and put together a team that is a top 5 team in the country the following year. Butch gets it. There's a thing about there's a piece to hiring a coach in Auburn for Auburn at any sport. They have to get it. They have to get Auburn. And Butch gets Auburn. I think Bruce obviously gets Auburn. I think Hugh gets Auburn. Butch in particular gets Auburn. And that's why people are willing to rally around him instead of throw stones after a bad year. And understand that he's a really good coach. Auburn does have some limitations when it comes to baseball. So what we have to do is we have to up the support when we have a little bit of a setback, and good things can happen. Guys, the crowd, the stadium and the crowd, like, everything they've done is just top notch, like incredible. Like, you had almost 8,000 fans at every single game this weekend. They got by the real baseball folks got behind Butch, and this is what you see as the result. And I think that we need to understand that we can't live or die all the time off of like one game or one season. You got to look at the body of work, and on top of that, does this guy get it? Does this guy get all the aspects of Auburn? Does he understand the off the field aspect? It's huge. Is he relatable? I mean, you can see Butch at just insert place in Auburn. You can see him just anywhere, and he's going to shake your hand. He's going to say hello just like a regular guy. He just gets it. And I think that's why this team is so much fun to follow, and this staff is so much fun to follow, and this season has been so much fun to follow, and they deserve it. They deserve it big time. I think Auburn has 3 coaches. I know one of them. I know we still got to see the results on the field from Hugh, and I think that's coming. I think that's coming. But you got 3 coaches that I think get it. They get Auburn. And that is a huge aspect if you want to win at a high level at Auburn. That's a huge aspect if you want to have longevity at Auburn. You have to buy in. You have to get deeply entrenched. You got to be a part of the community. And all of these guys do that at a high level, Butch in particular. So could not be happier for those guys, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to hear Lindsey and Brad and Sonny and those guys break this weekend down and then preview next weekend. Make sure you're got your head on a swivel for when that episode of the Barn Baseball Pod drops, because it's going to be spectacular. There's nobody doing baseball coverage like the Barn. There's nobody that doing it like Brad Law and Lindsey Crosby. It's just spectacular. Great stuff. So, guys, I really appreciate you listening. Let me know what you think about the wide receiver room. Let me know if you can think of a better room as a whole, even if it's an older room. I'd love to hear the room, like not a duo. I want to hear at least a 4 deep that's comparable. I think you're going to be hard pressed to find one, but we'll be back again soon. If you like the video, like it. If you like the channel, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, _Charlie_5, and we'll talk again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.